Morning. Assalamu alaikum, أيها السيدات والسادة. Shalom, عابرين بحبيرات. Peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. Howdy. My name is Samir Bitar, and I'm very honored and privileged to be with you here today. Thank you all for coming. I'm very happy to see our young participants. Ahlan wa sahlan, welcome to the University of Montana. Allow me to start by thanking the University of Montana for bringing us together, and to thank our sponsors and supporters, the Office of the President, Royce Engstrom, the Office of the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, the Central and Southwest Asian Studies Center, the Maureen and Mike Mansfield Center, the Department of History, the Department of Modern and Classical Languages, and last but not least, the Montana World Affairs Council. Without their help and support, we would not be able to bring this conference to the University of Montana, Missoula, and the state at large. Today, I have the honor and privilege to present our speaker. I promise you a very informative and fascinating presentation. Dr. R.D. Kia is the award-winning co-founder and co-director of the Central and Southwest Asian Studies Center on campus. He has developed a number of courses in Central and Southwest Asian Studies, which are now components of a new minor and major in the field. More than 60 of the courses he has taught since 1993 have concentrated exclusively on Central Asia, are class-listed with anthropology and history. They include Silk Road, Central Asia, people and environments, Central Asia and its neighbors, cities and landscapes of Central Asia, artistic traditions of Central Asia, and Central Asia Seminar, and many more. This is just a brief. Dr. Kia received a Teaching Excellence and Scholarship Award during the 6th Annual Central and Southwest Asian Studies Conference in April of 2007. President Royce Engstrom and the Chair of Anthropology presented an award in recognition of Dr. Kia's high-quality teaching of thousands of students since 1994. In spring of 2010, Dr. Kia was awarded an honorary doctoral degree and an honorary professorship from Nasser Khosrow State University in Tajikistan, Central Asia. He is one of the most popular professors at the University of Montana. For the last 20 years, he has written and lectured extensively on the history, archaeology, cultures, and artistic traditions of Central Asia. Today's topic is Golden Age of Central Asia. Please help me in giving a nice Montana welcome to my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Ardeshir Kia.
Thank you very much, Samir. Today, before we start, actually, I would like to thank also Professor Samir Bitar, who actually initiated. I had no idea who Samir was when first. Do we have a sound? Yeah. 16, 17 years ago, when I ran into him, I found him highly energetic, highly committed, and he is the person who actually initiated the Arabic program on campus, a program that now offers a minor And with no breaks, with no sabbatical, actually, he has done a great job as far as teaching thousands of people since 16, 17 years ago. I would like you to have a hand for Professor Samir Vitar for his excellent job that he had done, and it's a great pleasure and honor to have a colleague like him. We don't have that much time today, so this is like when we are talking about Central Asia, primarily don't be surprised. It is like the dark side of the moon exposed to light, since we are talking about 71, 72 years of occupation by Soviet Union, that there was no interaction, communication with the rest of the world from this area. The eastern part of this area is still occupied by Chinese. So primarily what we're going to be doing is that we're going to go through a few quick slides as far as contemporary time. This is like the summary of what we're going to be covering. Then we're going to go through a number of series and sequence of time that questioning whether there is one golden age within Central Asia, or we are talking about several golden ages. And then afterwards, after going through a few of these segments of time briefly in a macro sense, then we're going to concentrate on one of these golden ages that I'm going to elaborate a little bit more, and primarily that is the heart of Middle Ages, medieval time, that we're going to be talking a little bit about that. So here is Astana, the new capital of Kazakhstan, and primarily when we are talking about Astana, this is capital officially since 2007. It became the capital of Kazakhstan. Now, the fall of Soviet Union happens in 1991. So the question is that whether is this a golden age? We are talking about the what these states were at one point. They were the periphery to a highly centralized government from Moscow. And then when we are talking about Kazakhstan, and primarily we are dealing with 5 independent states: Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. And of course, when we are talking about Central Asia, the eastern part of it, we're going to have more maps actually. Xinjiang area, that to the east of this particular area. What you are looking at is Almaty, the new capital right here. The old capital was old capital was Almaty. The new capital Astana is right up there. That we were just looking at. So primarily we are dealing with Russia to the north, China to the east, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan to the south, and primarily Caspian Sea to the west. Few more of these slides, we are looking at celebration of independence in Turkmenistan. This time, Ashgabat, the capital of Turkmenistan, a country under 5 million population, emerging after the fall of Soviet Union. In fact, emerging within the last 11 to 12 years as the 4th largest producer and exporter of natural gas, that the pipeline is going all the way to Shanghai, China, and then going all the way to various parts of Europe. Few more pictures, another Astana picture, capital of Kazakhstan. Just give us a little bit of idea that when we are talking about the last almost 25 years, these new independent states of former Soviet Union, what they have gone through. This is Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, celebration of independence. Again, the question is that whether this is like a new golden age, in a sense that Kyrgyzstan is the only actually entity and only republic that had 3 democratic elections after the fall of Soviet Union, and many scholars actually visiting the area, they identify Kyrgyzstan as the only republic that has somehow has left the old Soviet control, Russian control, in a sense that when we are talking about the other republics, primarily the head of the other republics, when we are talking about President Niyazov, President Nazarbayev, President Karimov, President the other republics, primarily they have presidents that at one point they were members of Communist Party, the members of the intelligence. Kyrgyzstan, the only country that primarily their presidents had not been members of the former Soviet structure when we are talking about them. Now this one, a view from Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, that the petrodollar, the natural gas actually boomed within the last 11, 12 years, shows the fact that we are dealing with a revival, with a golden age within many of these areas that when we are talking about some of these republics. This is Dushanbe, the capital of Tajikistan, celebrating the independence. These are very recent pictures, actually, and we are talking about autonomy, independence, and then a totally different type of opening as far as interaction and communication with the rest of the world when we are dealing with these new republics. And this is again Ashgabat, the capital of Turkmenistan, celebrating Independence Day. Astana, Kazakhstan, this is the palace of all nations, another picture of celebrating Independence Day. This is Tashkent, the capital of Uzbekistan, and celebration of Independence Day. This is Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, that we are dealing again with numerous series sequences of celebration for Independence Day after 1991. Now, briefly, what happens is that when we are talking about the years of occupation, what it goes through, what this area goes through, there is about 10, 11 years of what is known as indigenization. And according to Soviet policies, primarily we are talking about 10, 11 years that they try to somehow bring in the alienated people from these republics into the Communist Party, into the newest structure that they are trying to implement within the area. After 10 or 11 years, primarily, there are a lot of friction with the indigenous population as far as many of the policies that comes from Moscow dictated on these people primarily is questioned, objected, and in a kind of a natural way of reacting to some of these ideas. They question it, they object it, they make fun of some of these policies. So many of these people within these areas have been blacklisted. And when we are talking about indigenization, that primarily starts from 1924 into 1930s. By 1934-35, all these blacklist people within the area, they go through a session that is called, an era that is called purges. That a lot of these people actually are sent to prison. within this time when we are talking about the occupation by the Soviet Union is a record of prison making that Stalin has within this time. He built over 30,000 prisons that by 1937-38, there are more people in prison than outside, actually, when we are talking about these people. At the same time, he moves all these people, like from all cities, into these areas that are called kolkhozes. Kolkhozes in Russian, K-O-L-K-H-O-Z. Kolkhoz, like, is a collective farm that primarily from the towns and cities, everybody is moved into these collective farms, and what they do is like cotton plantations. Cotton is somehow the Soviet Union wants to dominate the cotton market in the world. And into 30s and 40s, the concentration of population primarily are in cotton fields, like the area that you see on the map, like Uzbekistan, between Sirdarya and Amudarya River, that both goes to Aral Sea. There are over 3,000 of these, close to 4,000 kolkhozes, collective farms. And large part of Central Asia, especially flatland of Central Asia, turns into these cotton fields. But then it is by the late 1950s, 1960s, that because of population explosion within these collectives, because of the health problems that these collectives have, and because of insecurity within these collective farms, especially after Stalin, after his death in 1953, they start moving people back to the cities and reviving some of the cities that we were just looking at. So rebuilding of these cities starts at the time of the presidency of and leadership of Brezhnev Kosygin, especially in 60s, 70s, and primarily that was, and then spending tens of millions of dollars in some of these archaeological sites from medieval time to win the hearts and minds of the people, but then yet too late, too little, too late, and then somehow they have lost their appeal to the indigenous population by then. Now here I would like to actually add few names. We are talking about some of the U.S., some of the American scholars who has been in the field and done work extensively when we are talking about since it relates to that particular case study that we're going to be talking about it in a few minutes. Arthur Pope and Phyllis Ackerman, that they dedicated their life, for decades of their life, doing research within the area to the south. Richard Fry, who died a couple of years ago, actually, who had done the heritage of Central Asia, and primarily when we are talking about Frederick Starr, that case study, we're going to be actually talking about him. This is like one of the, Richard Fry is one of the figures, one of the people who actually he follows, he's influenced by. We have used some of these books, like The Heritage of Central Asia by Richard Fry, in some of these classes that Professor Bitar was talking about. And then the Lost Enlightenment by Frederick Starr from Johns Hopkins University, that actually we're going to be concentrating talking a little bit about some of these scholars, brilliant scholars from this time, that when we are talking about Central Asia, primarily many of these scholars that Frederick Starr talks about comes from various regions and cities within this area. And we're going to have references to him and this particular book. But let's talk a little bit about some of these stepping stones of history that are regarded to be the golden age. the one golden age primarily is like the Scythian, Saka, Hun's time, 7th to 4th century BC when we are talking about. When Russian occupied this area to the north in the first half of 19th century, and then they expanded their territory to the south within Central Asia. They had no idea that when to the northwest of this area, where is northwest of Kazakhstan today, in 1715, 5 of the commanders of Peter the Great brought him 4 pieces of gold and put it in front of him in his palace in St. Petersburg, that he's building his palace in St. Petersburg. And primarily, when he looked at them, he said, well, what are these? And now, this is 2-3 years after this campaign starts in 1715. And they said, that, well, we got these, we bought these from your people. And he said that, my people, what are you talking about? He said, well, you know, your people they break in these tombs, in these kurgans in Russian, Kurgan, and then they take these gold pieces and they sell it in the local markets. So they have no idea who these people are or what these pieces of gold meant. So what he orders is that, okay, well, you got to put up an order that there is no, there should be a scientific type of research and excavation, archaeological excavation on these sites that they have broken in, and buy all these pieces of gold that you see in the markets and bring them to me. When we are talking about that Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, next to the Peter the Great Palace, on the 2nd floor of the museum, every few feet there is a guard with machine gun, and they walk with you actually to show you that 20,000 pieces of gold collection that they have from these kurgans, from these, like this particular era. What you see here primarily is a king and queen warrior from this era, Scythian Saka warrior, that based on an archaeologist in 1967, Ashikov, that he found this tomb that was broken in by robbers, grave robbers, but then they have left out a valuable, a fascinating piece of armor from a prince or princess. They are still debating on that, with 4,000 pieces of gold woven. And this is like a reproduction of that particular discovery that is one of the fascinating discoveries of this particular era. So talking about golden ages, somehow it became highly obsessive amongst the Russian archaeologists that they wanted to break in these kurgans, although majority of them were broken in by grave robbers in like ancient or medieval time. And they wanted somehow to compete with each other as far as who's going to find a kurgan that still they can find some of these gold pieces within. And eventually we know that they have found more than 20,000 pieces that is left out. Then moving along with the golden age. Another golden age comes when the mass migration of people from Central Asia happens. We are talking about now based on the new forensic analysis and the new DNA C14 testing. They have found out the fact that, well, they were 3 mass migration to North India, to Near East, Middle East, and to Europe from this area, from the heart of Central Asia. And one of the most powerful empires established by the 6th century by Cyrus. Cyrus the Great is known as Achaemenid Empire in the history. Now, within this time, the most important aspect of the influence, the impact of establishment of this empire is that for the first time we see state formation within a Central Asian entity that comes into existence. To the south of Aral Sea, Khwarezmia, to the heart of Central Asia, Sogdia, Margiana, to the south of Sogdiana, and then again furthermore to the south, Bactria. I mean, some of these states, new states from 6th through 4th century that have been established there. Now, the significance of these states is that we are dealing with interaction and communication between the local regional capital to the central capital that is to the south, and primarily the first roads, systematic roads are established. And a phenomenon comes into existence that within the literature of the time is called chapar, C-H-A-P-A-R. Chapar primarily is the very first mail service that runs between the regional capital to the central capital, and eventually it became like the first mail service that runs between various towns and cities, establishment of the roads, interaction and communication, that as a result, the reason that we are setting up this stage is that this is the system, this is the entity that eventually, when we are talking about initiating of the Silk Road by the Chinese to the east, is connected to this system, and this system somehow continues its way into Holy Land, North Africa on one side, and Europe from the other side. So primarily when we are talking about some of these entities that we are dealing with, as far as like Achaemenid era, 553 BC, 330 BC we are talking about, and the state Sogdia, Khwarezmia, Parthia, Bactria, some of the states within Central Asia that we are dealing with. And of course Margiana. Now, one very important aspect of life within Central Asia is the phenomenon of steppe. Steppe in Russian, like steppes, they refer to in some literature. Steppe in Russian meaning that grazing land, grasslands actually. Land that no trees grow, but a lot of huge amount of grassland that's wide from the northern part of Manchuria into Central Asia, all the way into the heart of Europe. Primarily, we are talking about the roaming ground of some of these nomadic groups that when we are talking about mass migration of people from north, this is where actually it happens. From here, mass migration to North India, to Near East, Middle East, and then to Europe, that as far as like when we are dealing. Now they have done comparative studies on cults, religions, and artifacts of different kinds and sorts, as far as somehow when we are dealing with various concepts and ideas, that the similarity and differences between some of these ideas that come into existence within some of these entities, when we are talking about the North Indian subcontinent, and then or Near East, Middle East, or Europe, somehow there are comparative studies between cults and religions, that some of these earlier concepts somehow were shared when these people lived next to each other within this roaming around with this steppe that provided land. Now we are talking about horse cultures, we are talking about sheep cultures. These are two dominating cultures within this era. Although they have other type of animals that play a central role, very important role, like goats and camels and yaks, depending where they were. The high grounds, yaks were pretty handy as far as carrying things, and then when we are talking about drier grounds, we are talking about camels, of course. But then, for most part, we are talking about horse cultures and sheep cultures. And horse play a central role, that they think that horse was actually domesticated within this area. And many of these kurgans, many of these mounds, many of these graves and tombs, people were buried with their horses. Their names, actually, that some of the names that they have found, it includes the name of the horse with their name. I mean, they lived with their horses, and horse played, it was like a sacred animal, savior of some of these nomads and early people within this area. Now we are talking about the steppe grazing land role of horse. We are looking at like the grazing land of Kazakhstan to the north, that horse played a fascinating role within. And then this is a map of the Achaemenid Empire, that when we are talking about the new states that come into existence. Oops. Okay, here we have Khwarezmia, here we have Sogdia, we have Margiana, we have Parthia, we have Bactria. So we are looking at some of these states that earlier we were talking about them. So Parthian Empire, primarily 2nd century BC, 2nd century AD, and this is when we are talking about the golden age of Parthian Empire, primarily we are talking about a phenomena that comes to Central Asia and brings a great deal of prosperity to many of the cities. Actually, now the settlements that they develop into towns, towns that now somehow coincidentally they are extension of what is known afterwards as the Silk Road. They play a very important role as far as prosperity of some of these states that we were talking about. Between 138 BC to 105 BC, there are 3 missions by Chinese delegation from Chanang, the old capital that today is called Xi'an, X-I-A-N, Chanang, C-H-A-N-G'-A-N, that Han Wudi, the Chinese emperor, Han Wudi, H-A-N-W-U-D-I, he sends Zhang Qian, that is an envoy. Zhang Qian is Z-H-A-N-G, Qian, Q-I-A-N, on 3 missions. That first time he is caught and imprisoned by some of these nomads for 11 years. He fled the prison. It takes 2 years for him to go back to Chanang. And Han Wudi said that, wow, we need a great celebration. Wow, Zhang Qian, he was like his best friend through like his early stage of life. It became like the bodyguard of Han Wudi, and then highly trusted by Han Wudi. He said that, Zhang Qian, you got to go to a second mission. So second mission, he goes to the North Indian subcontinent. He goes back. He has made some alliances as far as somehow expansion of trade, especially silk from China, that now they have decided to mass produce the silk. And then for the 3rd time, when we are talking about 105 BC, he says, Zhang Qian, you got to go straight west and see where you get, find alliances against these nomads to the north, northwest, and at the same time, see if you can find alliances as far as expansion of the market, Silk Road. So this time, 105, he goes all the way to Parthia that you see on the map, when we are talking about that region that is to the south-southeast of Caspian Sea. And primarily, it is there that he's caught by the 20,000 horsemen, Parthian warriors, and taken to the Parthian capital. At that time, Parthian capital is Nisa, N-I-S-A. And then the first intercontinental oath, contract of trade and commerce, is signed by Zhangqian and Mithridates II, the Parthian emperor there. And primarily, Parthians actually promised that they're going to be helping Chinese as far as expanding the Silk Road to the south, to the Indian subcontinent, and also to Rome, to Europe, and to Holy Land, North Africa. So when we are talking about the prosperity of some of these magnificent cities, as you have heard, Bukhara, Samarkand, Tashkent, Khiva, and many others, primarily a large portion of this prosperity comes from this trade and commerce that continues for hundreds of years. So here is Parthian crown that has been found by a fascinating Victor Sarinidi, that one of the Soviet archaeologists has found this. Sarinidi is S-A-R-I-D-I-N-I. And primarily this prosperity that we are dealing with is based on collaboration, friendship, and somehow this trade and commerce that goes through this area, Central Asia, within this time. So here we are looking at the Parthian Empire, and primarily the this is when the so we are talking about Silk Road coming from the east, going through this area. This is Nisa, the capital that actually the first intercontinental trade and commerce contract was signed in Nisa, the capital. And then the continuation of this trade and commerce that became intercontinental, including in many regions and countries. Now, Richard Fry, Heritage of Central Asia, has a chapter that is called Forgotten Kushanid. These were now are identified, Kushanid are identified as the fourth powerful party within the ancient world. Accidentally, during the colonial period, by the mid-19th century, we are talking about 1853, two of the British officers on the shore of Indus Valley to the south, where the border of Pakistan and India is, were trying to find a way to establish, to build a road, and they run into some of these fascinating excavation sites that they had no idea who these areas, these cities, or belong to these ancient cities. And eventually, when we are looking at some of these gold coins from this era, this time, later on, they found out that these are Kushanid, the type of coins. That primarily, when we were talking about Kushanid Empire, large part of Southern Central Asia, large part of Afghanistan, North Pakistan, North India, all the way northeast of Iran. This was part of this empire when we are talking about 30 to 320. Now, these coins primarily were instrumental as far as establishing the stepping stone that some of these empires, emperors of Kushanid had gone through. The most famous of these emperors that primarily converted to the King Kanishka of Kushan by the end of 1st century, beginning of 2nd century, converted to Buddhism. And when we are dealing with Buddhism traveling on the Silk Road in a kind of a reversal fashion, going to Xinjiang, northwest of China, and then into China, Korea, and Japan. As a result, we're dealing with esoteric Buddhism, 6th, 7th century in Japan, 8th century Pure Land Buddhism, and then Zen Buddhism a little bit later during Kamukara period in Japan by 10th, 11th century. Primarily, they all come from this area, from an area that today is known as like Gandhara. When we are talking about Bamiyan area, Gandhara area, you have heard it, some of these names during the Afghan war. These are fascinating archaeological sites, cities of ancient time that at one point they were the most prosperous cities in the world, in the sense that a lot of trade and commerce and a lot of cultural activities came into existence. And in fact, the second phase of Buddhism, some of you are taking Buddhism with Professor Brad, that when we are dealing with Mahayana Buddhism, the great vehicle Buddhism, Gandhara area, not the city, the region that is to the east of Afghanistan, to the northeast of Pakistan, north of India. Primarily, that region is the birthplace of some of these Buddhist fascinating sculpture, two-dimensional, three-dimensional type of composition. That 32 major and 80 minor features of Buddha actually comes into existence within Gandhara. And then people are wondering, wow, esoteric Buddhism, Pure Land, how come these are so similar, close to what we find in Gandhara when we are talking about 1st century, 2nd century AD. Primarily, these are the blueprints of some of these artifacts, some of these designs that have been actually initiated within this area during Kushanid period, during this golden age, and has traveled to elsewhere in around the world. So when we are talking about Kushanid, primarily one of the maps that suggests the fact that they traveled, they came actually from northeast, and then they primarily expanded into the areas that we were talking about. We see it right on the map. Then we are talking about another dynasty, that is Samanid dynasty, that primarily this is the time that by the 7th century, by the 721, 722, an Arab warrior known as Qutayba actually comes, expands its armed forces into Central Asia and takes over cities like Samarkand and Bukhara and introduces Islam to the area. Primarily the flatlands of Central Asia, the conversion start happening within this time when we are talking about the first half of the 8th century. And already 651, the Sassanid Persian Empire has collapsed. 751, about almost exactly like 100 years later, that the Arab army defeated Tang dynasty of China in a place called Talas, T-A-L-A-S, on the shore of Talas River, where Kyrgyzstan, North Kyrgyzstan is, Eastern Kazakhstan is. And primarily, when we are talking about Samanid, 9th century to 10th century, we are talking about 815 AD to 999. And primarily, this is the time that Samanid, this refers to a family actually from that established itself in the city of Bukhara, B-O-K-H-A-R-A. They somehow collaborated with the son of Abbasid Caliph. That now Abbasids are coming to existence by the mid 8th century and up to the into the 13th century, 1220s. They rule a large area, including parts of Central Asia, from Baghdad. That Baghdad is their capital. The son of one of the caliphs, one of the Abbasid caliphs, the caliph is Harun al-Rashid, is called. He has two sons. One is Mamun, M-A-M-U-N, and one is Amin, A-M-I-N. And he divided his territory, giving parts of Central Asia to his son Mamun, and then the western part of his empire he gave to Amin. And Mamun primarily decided to rule from a city that is called Merv, M-E-R-V. Russians call it Mary. And he stays there between 808 to 813. Within this time, actually, he recruits, he became friends with many scholars, writers, poets, scientists of the Central Asian cities. And primarily when he defeated his brother, Amin, and he established himself in Baghdad, he brought a large number of these scholars, not only from Central Asia, but also from India and elsewhere, into a district of Baghdad and then he establishes this university that is called Nizamiye. Later on is called Nizamiye of Baghdad. And primarily when we are dealing with some of these scholars, that who you see here is called Biruni, B-I-R-U-N-I, that 500 years before Europe, he actually calculated the radius of Earth. Some of these scholars, I like to refer you to The Lost Enlightenment by Frederick Starr from Johns Hopkins University that introduces some of these giants of science of the time, where we are talking about 9th, 10th century. So this is the Samanid Empire, and primarily within this time, Professor Vitar gave me a time that I got 5 minutes, so we are going fast. Sorry that. Then after the Mongolian invasion, that Mongols 1220 is the starting point of this invasion. We are dealing with another golden age, Timurid golden age of 14th, 15th century, that this time primarily Samarkand is the capital. After devastating Samarkand, Timur decided, T-I-M-U-R, part of the Timurid that you see there. He decided to rebuild Samarkand as his capital. Now, this particular golden age happens within this time as far as not only rebuilding Samarkand, architectural entities that are fascinating, but also manuscripts, book art. What you see here in this picture, actually, there are three schools. Three schools that right in front of you, the one that is facing you is called Telakari, Tela, T-E-L-L-A-K-A-R-I. The one to the the one to your left-hand side, that is Ulugbek school, descendant of Timur, that he was almost like the local mayor of Samarkand. Ulugbek, U-L-A-G, Bek, B-A-I-K. And then there is another school facing Ulugbek school that is called Shirdar. Shir is like lion, Dar is like gate. There are two actually, two tigers, but then they are called Shir, lion. They are striped. They have striped bodies. But then Shirdar, S-H-I-R-D-A-R. What Timur actually found out is the fact that we're looking at what was accomplished in various cities of Central Asia, especially like that lost enlightenment that Frederick Starr talks about. Primarily, he found out the fact that education was so instrumental as far as elevating the spirit and soul and knowledge of these people. So when we are dealing with one of the very first entities that is start building, reviving Samarkand, or these schools. Then schooling became so hard, this central to this golden age, like the way that it was so central to Bukhara and Samanid golden age. That primarily when Russians come to the area, I'm gonna close it with this because then we may have a little bit of time when the panel is talking. I might talk a little bit about that case study of that age of enlightenment within Central Asia, 19th century. When Russians occupy South, when we are talking about 1880s, one of the first reports is that, well, we entered Bukhara. It has a little bit over 100,000 population by now. It has lost some of its population, but then it has 103 schools. And it shows the fact that it reflects the fact that the heritage of that golden age still there as far as when we are talking about modern phenomena of public education. It seems like almost every single person within that entity, when we are talking about Samarkand or Bukhara, somehow they had access to schooling, to education. So when we are looking at elevation of not only spirit and soul, but also knowledge. And then when we see some of these giants that Frederick Starr talks about, Biruni and so many others, primarily are the result of this particular attention, this concentration on the appreciation for knowledge and giving that chance to every single individual to be able to flourish himself or herself through this apparatus. Thank you. Questions, please.
Thank you all for being great listeners. Please help me thank my dear colleague, Dr. Ardashir Kia, again for his fascinating presentation. He did bring us 15 centuries, so now we have some homework to do. Okay, and we have a microphone over there, so for individuals who would like to ask a question, please come up to the microphone. If you are closer to us here, I'll be happy to bring the mic to you. We have a question up there.
What do you actually think? Do you think there's many golden ages or just one? To answer your own question.
I thought for, like when I started, I was only 11 years old, maybe younger than you. I don't know exactly. Thank you so much for the question. I wasn't sure how many golden ages were there. Somebody gave me a book on Central Asia when I was 11 years old. So there were lots of things that I didn't know. I mean, there were lots of terminologies, concepts, names that I had no idea who these people were or where these places were. So I started reading it, and that I got more curious to find out more about that. So I found out that there were maybe more than one golden age. Yeah, we were talking about like stepping stone, but this is real macro, real general. When those courses, we elaborate a lot about each of these golden ages. But thank you, fascinating question. Thank you so much.
Would you say that since there was access to so many schools there, would you say that everybody would want to be part of them? Or did many of them feel like they couldn't because of their family beliefs and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think that what we are talking about different time, different place, different, like when we are talking about Timuri time or like Samani time or even prior to that. I think everybody was encouraged, and I'm pretty sure that there were people that they didn't go to school, or they went to school partially, or they went to school for a period of time and then they didn't continue for a while. It didn't mean that everybody had to go to school. I mean, when we are talking about some of these giants of the time that Frederick Starr talks about, like that schooling gave opportunity to some of these talents to somehow find themselves. And then through that schooling and exposure to and being taught by different masters, different teachers within the time, some of these, not all, some of them somehow were shown themselves. The way that the schooling was actually was very different than our schooling. When they studied everything. Everything that was accomplished was the knowledge that came was in all fields. So it was a kind of a general education, although some of these people are identified as like scientists or poet or writer, but then they tried all of it, and then maybe one of these areas they could show themselves better than others. Some of them were real good in number of different areas that they wrote and they created, and yeah, but then a few of them became like the top scholars of their time. But then it was the chance, it was the opportunity that somehow through that interaction, communication with some of the teachers, masters that they had, then they could show themselves better sometimes in the future through time. Yeah, thanks for.
Thank you,
Very good
Dr.
question.
Kia. Thank you for your questions. And please stay with us. We have another panel coming up titled Struggle for Women's Rights in Afghanistan and Iran. Thank you very much.
Thank you.